Is Dr. Madarcos attending?
Kanina po nandito po siya, Dok.
Kanina. All right. Sige. Let me share the PowerPoints. No? Can you see now the title of the slide?
Yes po, Dok, kita po.
Okay, so basically these two hormones, glucagon and epinephrine. And we try to classify these two hormones as to their structure. What can you say? They are what? Protein hormones, no? Made up of amino acids. Now, this slide shows you the two cells of the islet cells of the Langerhans of pancreas that synthesizes and secrete these two hormones, no? Your alpha cells synthesizing and secreting glucagon depending on the situation, and your beta cells synthesizing and secreting your insulin. And we will take up first glucagon, no? And we know that glucagon is secreted when at this
Hungry state.
time, hungry state. So at this time, after lunch, then what is predominating in our system would be insulin, no? Guru, after 3 hours from your last meal, then it will shift, whereby glucagon would be predominant over that of insulin. You see, class, at any point in time, there can be no situation whereby there will be zero glucagon or zero insulin. No, we will be just talking about ratios. No, there. Life would not go on without both of them. Okay, so for our map, here are the things that we will take up. Ayan. At the end of this discussion, then we will be able to explain the structure, how these hormones are secreted, and then after secretion, naturally, what is the nature of proteins once they have been utilized and they have aged in the cell? Anybody? What is the nature of proteins? They have to be degraded, no? They have to be degraded. So we have to see also. And then lastly, we will look into the elimination of glucagon. And after that, then you will be also to explain. Will be able to also to explain how your glucagon acts, its role in glucose metabolism, and its effect, as I mentioned earlier, no, in lipid metabolism, basically lipolysis, formation of ketone bodies, energy expenditure, your appetite as well, and food intake, no. And then after that, lastly, you will be able to explain the role of glucagon in the pathophysiology of diseases like diabetes, obesity, and hepatic steatosis. No, there. So glucagon, as I have said, is a protein hormone. So it's made up of amino acids secreted by the alpha cells or the pancreatic islet cells of Langerhans. And hypoglycemia, as, I asked, no, is physiologically the most potent secretory stimuli, no, stimulus. And the best known action of glucagon is what? To stimulate glucose production. Where? In the liver mainly, no? Through what pathway? Your gluconeogenesis, no? And this is to maintain adequate plasma glucose concentration. Bakit class? Why? As I also, as I have also emphasized and I'm emphasizing in the class, that the most important function of the liver is what? What is the most important function of the liver class? Siguro wala pang nagtanong sa inyo, no? May nagtanong na ba? Sa biochem? 'Di ba? Kasi 'di ba, 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 ' James, or anybody from the class. May nagtanong na, what is the most important function of the liver? Class, the most important function of the liver is to synthesize glucose. Why? In relation to the most important organs of the body, which is what? What is the most important organ of the body? The brain. No? The brain solely depends on glucose for its energy. Without glucose class, then probably the brain will not be able to coordinate all the functions, no, of the different organs of the body to carry out what? Homeostasis, and later on to carry out survival, especially during times of starvation. There, no? Ayan. Now, glucagon is also involved in hepatic lipid, as I mentioned, yes, and amino acid metabolism, and may increase resting energy expenditure. Meron. So, glucagon plays an important role in maintaining glucose homeostasis by stimulating hepatic gluconeogenesis, as I've said, no? Now, in contrast to the glucose depositing nature of insulin, glucagon acts as a glucose metabolizing hormone. Ayan. It degrades, it oxidizes glucose. It helps, no? In line with this proposed action, high plasma glucose concentration, stimulating insulin secretion from pancreatic beta cells, inhibit glucose secretion, whereas low plasma glucose concentration represents one of the most potent glucagon secretory stimuli. Accordingly, normal plasma glucose concentrations depend largely on the balanced secretion of insulin and glucagon from the pancreatic beta cells and alpha cells, respectively. For a while, class, huh? I'll just answer the door. I'm back. Sorry, sir. Sorry, class. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes po, Doc.
All right. So let's talk about something about history. Ayan. So the hyperglycemic effect of this hormone was described as early as 1922 by Kimball and Merlin, no? Who discovered the hyperglycemic factor in the pancreatic extracts and code this factor as the glucose agonist. So that is the source of the name glucagon. Are you with me? Glucagon. Can you see from glucose agonist? Yes? Tama?
Yes po,
And
Doc. Doc,
then,
naka-off
up,
cam po kayo, Doc.
ha? Naka-off ako? Oo nga, no? Naka-off ba ang aking kwan?
Yan po, okay na po, Doc.
Okay na? Yan. There. Ayan. So the word glucagon comes from two words, glucose agonist, no? Then in 1950, this hormone was purified and crystallized by the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly. Yan. And then after that, the sequence of amino acids, this is made up of 29 amino acids, no? Was determined. Okay. And so after this, then you have the different developments of this uses of glucagon in treating like severe insulin-induced hypoglycemia, no? And then later on, with the development of radioimmunoassay techniques. So the later investigations developed, no? Then. So it was discovered that patients with diabetes, no, exhibit increased glucagon levels, which led to the bihormonal hypothesis, stating that the combination of hypoinsulinemia and hyperglucagonemia constitutes a central pathophysiological determinant for diabetic hyperglycemia. And from then on, it has become evident, class, that glucagon not only acts by increasing hepatic glucose production through gluconeogenesis, but affects the overall energy homeostasis in times of limited energy supply, no? There, by stimulating lipid and protein catabolism. Because we know for a fact that after the stores of our carbohydrates have been depleted, the form of glycogen, no? Then our liver would be in the mode of gluconeogenesis. And we know that gluconeogenesis is what kind of pathway? Is it a catabolic or anabolic pathway, class?
Catabolic po.
Anabolic, no? Gluconeogenesis is an anabolic pathway, and therefore the cells need a source of energy. But at the same time, the individual, the organism, is at starvation. So where would the cells of this individual, this organism, get its ATP or source of energy? Where, class? The person has nothing to eat na. And yet, the liver needs energy in order to synthesize glucose to perform its most important function, di ba? To supply the brain with much needed energy source, glucose. So saan siya kukuha, class?
Doc, sa adipose po.
Sa adipose tissue, where you have your deposited triacylglycerol. So there, in fact, so therefore, there will be lipid mobilization, no? Yan. The triacylglycerols will be degraded into free fatty acids and glycerol, and this now will be transported to the liver where they will be metabolized. The free fatty acids will be metabolized through what? Your beta oxidation to generate the much needed ATP that the liver cells can utilize to synthesize glucose. By the way, how many ATPs are needed in order to synthesize 1 mole of glucose? Class. Just to synthesize a mole of glucose, the liver cells have to use needs how many moles of ATP?
2 po.
Ha? Ilan?
2.
Two only?
4
Talaga?
po.
Four only?
30 to 32 po ba?
Uy, sobra naman yan.
8?
Eight? Are you talking of the malate aspartate shuttle? Only six class, 6 moles of ATP are needed to synthesize 1 mole of glucose. No? So there. So this will come from the breakdown of your fatty acids through beta oxidation. No? There. Ayan. Right? So there will be hepatic glucose production through gluconeogenesis, no? But not only that, as I've said, it will affect the lipid metabolism as well as amino acid metabolism. When would amino acid metabolism come in, class? When would that come in? Meron ba ditong taga Kappa Starla? Meron? Wala. Because I always use that because that is where you will find the shrine where the death march ended, no? In Kappa Starla. There's a shrine there overlooking the sea where the death march ended, no? And during that march, we know that the Filipino as well as the American soldiers were turned into skin and bones because the Japanese Imperial Army really is not bent on keeping prisoners because for the fact that to keep prisoners, class, that is a very costly affair. Imagine you have to clothe them, you have to house them, you have to feed them, you have to treat them, no? There. Okay. So after the catabolism of all the stores of energy in the adipose tissue, then the muscle proteins now will come in. They will be degraded as well. They will be broken down into corresponding amino acids, and amino acids will be now utilized by the liver in order to synthesize glucose. Because we know for a fact that we can classify amino acids into three. Your glucogenic amino acids, meaning the carbon skeletons of which, when degraded, would give rise to pyruvate and intermediate pure Krebs cycle to generate energy. Also, you have your ketogenic amino acids. Basically, there are only two, no? Whereby the carbon skeletons upon degradation would end up as ketone bodies because we know for a fact that during prolonged starvation, then through the degradation of your lipids, ketone bodies will be formed, no? Because of a lot of acetyl-CoA that will be generated within the mitochondrial matrix, no? So these ketone bodies will be used by the heart, no? By the muscles, and also the brain and the kidney in order to be the source of energy. What about the liver, class? Can the liver use ketone bodies for its energy source? Yes or no? Ernestine.
No po ba?
Yes, you're right. The liver cannot use ketone bodies as source of energy. What you have to remember, class, is the saying that ako ang nagsaing, pero iba ang kumain. No? Yes, no? That's the case of the liver cells when it comes to during times of starvation, no? Whereby it is the major organ that synthesizes ketone bodies, and yet they cannot use ketone bodies as source of energy. What they can use, class, as source of energy would be keto acids. A good example of which would be your alpha ketoglutarate, no, coming from the deamination, no, oxidative deamination of glutamate, becoming alpha ketoglutarate. That's a major reaction in amino acid metabolism. No, there. Another would be your transamination reactions, like for example, transamination of alanine will become pyruvate. Pyruvate will be used by the liver cells, no, through your minor gluconeogenic pathway. Can you name one? Is one of your minor gluconeogenic pathway. your lactate or Cori cycle, remember? Yes. And the other one is your glucose alanine cycle there. Then also your oxaloacetate, no, from the transamination of aspartate, and also initially deamination, hydrolytic deamination of asparagine becoming aspartate, and aspartate eventually being transaminated to oxaloacetate, no? There. Okay. So let us see now the structure. As I mentioned earlier, glucagon is a protein hormone made up of 29 amino acid residues, no? There, ayan. Okay? And is secreted again by the alpha cells of the pancreas, islet cells, no? So initially, the precursor would be your proglucagon, there, which can be processed into a number of related peptide hormones. So this proglucagon is expressed in the pancreatic islet cells of alpha cells, the intestinal enteroendocrine L cells, no? And to a minor extent in neurons of the brainstem and the hypothalamus. There, okay? So here is the representation of the amino acid sequence, no? The primary sequence of your protein hormone glucagon. Ayan. So at the N-terminus, you will find there histamine, no? Histidine, no? And then at the carboxy end, you will find there threonine, okay? Precursor proglucagon, as I've said, and subsequently metabolized, processed into a number of peptide hormones, no? Processing of proglucagon is undertaken processing enzymes prohormone convertase 1 and prohormone convertase 3. And another one is prohormone convertase 2, no? There. Now, in the pancreas, your prohormone convertase 2 processes proglucagon to become your, to glucagon, there. While processing of proglucagon in the intestines and the brain is undertaken by your prohormone convertase 1, forming your GLP-1. What is GLP-1? Glucagon-like peptide 1. And your glucagon-like peptide 2, GLP-2. No? There. So here is a representation of the tissue-specific processing of your proglucagon. So, as I've said, in the pancreas, it is processed into glucagon, your glycentine-related pancreatic polypeptide, or your GRPP, your IP1, intervening peptide 1, and the major proglucagon fragment, MPGF, by the processing enzyme prohormone convertase 2. No? There. In the intestines and in the brain, your precursor is processed by prohormone convertase 1 as well as prohormone convertase 3, becoming your GLP-1, no? Glucagon-like peptide 1, and your GLP-2, glucagon-like peptide 2, your oxyntomodulin, your IP2, intervening peptide 2, and lastly, your glycentine. No? There. So, as we have seen and said initially, glucagon is secreted in response to hypoglycemia, prolonged fasting. So, yan, extended fasting. Also during exercise, vigorous exercise, and as well as during intake of protein-rich meals, no? There. Glucagon release is regulated through endocrine and paracrine pathways. Yan. By nutritional substances as well, and by your ANS, autonomic nervous system. Glucagon secretion occurs as through exocytosis of stored peptide vesicles initiated by secretory stimuli of the alpha cells. So let us see now the stimulatory regulators. Ayan. So release of this hormone include the regulators include hypoglycemia, amino acids, and the gut hormone glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide, or for short, GIP. No? There. Whereas hyperglycemia and your GLP-1 inhibit glucagon release. There. Glucagon release is as well inhibited in a paracrine fashion by factors somatostatin, insulin, zinc, okay, the metal zinc, possibly amylin, okay. Glucagon, after secretion, may regulate its own secretion indirectly via stimulatory effect on the beta cells to secrete insulin. So in contrast to glucose, non-glucose regulators of glucose secretion seem to mediate their action through changes in the second messenger cyclic AMP, their levels, no? Rather than through the calcium-dependent pathway. So when you say levels of cyclic AMP, what would this involve? This will involve the what? The enzyme adenylate cyclase. What about your calcium-dependent pathway? This will involve your what? Phospholipase C. Do you remember, class? Yes? Adenyl cyclase will change ATP to cyclic AMP, while your phospholipase C will act on PIP2 to generate what? The inositides, namely your 1,2-deacylglycerol as well as your IP3, your inositol 1,4,5 triphosphate, no? There. Now, the most potent regulator of glucose secretion is circulating glucose. There, okay. So hypoglycemia, when the levels of circulating glucose decreases there, it stimulates the pancreatic alpha cells to release glucagon. And so therefore the opposite, when you have hyperglycemia, when the levels of glucose rises in the circulation, then it will inhibit glucagon secretion and rather it will stimulate now insulin secretion. Now, this illustration class shows us the glucose-dependent glucagon secretion from the alpha cells. This tells us of the cellular mechanism behind the secretion, involving, as you can see, uptake of glucose by GLUT1. Can you see GLUT1 in the cell membrane of the pancreatic alpha cells? And subsequently, after the transport of your glucose inside the cells, what will happen? They will be metabolized through glycolysis, generating any ATP. And this ATP now, what happens? Will close your potassium channel there. Thereby, what happens? There will be now, ano mangyayari? Sa membrane potential. Class, ano yan? Ano ibig sabihin nito? Delta VM. Hello? What does delta, the sign delta means? Change, isn't it? Yes, change in the VM. Ano yun? Membrane potential. There will be what? Repolarization, depolarization, hyperpolarization. There will be depolarization, no? Causing now your calcium channel. What will happen to the channel? Age-dependent calcium channel will open. Ayan. Allowing calcium inside. Ayan. And we know that calcium inside, they will help what? In the exocytosis. There. Ayan. Can you see exocytosis, class? Yes. Vesicles containing the hormone will now transport your hormone to the outside, exocytosis, okay, of these granules, no? When you glucose levels, what happens? There will be glucose influx into the alpha cells, generating an increase in intracellular concentration, which opens potassium channels, dependent potassium channels. So this and brain potential access now your what is dependent calcium channel calcium to get inside, and therefore preventing there will be decrease of glucagon. Okay, so the reverse. All right. So let us see glucagon concentrations in the circulation. In the circulation concentration are in the picomolar range. No, how much is 1 pico, class? 10 to the negative what?
9 po ba?
9, di ba nano yun? Ano sunod sa 9? Pico. Ayan, pico. 10 to the negative
10.
12 po.
12. Ayan. Oy, by 3 tayo, class. By 3 yan. Ano sunod sa pico? Negative 15. It's femto. No? Femto. Ayan. Nano, pico, femto. Ayan. Alright. And then after 15, ano susunod? Astro. No? Astro. Alright. So there. Okay. The circulating glucose are in picomolar range. No, in the fasting state, glucose levels around 5 millimolars per liter. Glucagon is secreted in basal levels, in plasma concentration below 12 picomolars per liter. Yan. It's a glucose secretion balances the effect of secretion, resulting in steady state between glucose take and endogenous glucose production. So, yun ang sinasabi ko sa inyo, class, no? There can be never or no situation whereby there will be zero insulin and 100% glucagon, nor can there be a situation where you have 100 and zero insulin, no? There's always a ratio between the two. Ayan. So, this will result in the state glucose and endogenous glucose production there in the fasted state, thereby resulting in stable blood glucose concentration. During exercises or in case of hypoglycemia, circulating glucagon levels may increase dramatically to 3 to 4 times levels, no? Increasing the ratio of glucagon to insulin. Now this, ayan, showing you the concentration of glucagon to hypoglycemia, euglycemia, and hyperglycemia. Now take a look at the legend, class, somewhere in the middle above of the two graphs there. Can you see hyperglycemia? Square blue. Euglycemia, circular dark blue. And hypoglycemia, diamond darkest blue. Can you see that?
Yes po.
Yes? All right. So on the left tells us on the y-axis plasma glucose levels, no? The x-axis as to time, no? There. Right? So what do we see? In relation to your glucagon secretion levels, again, the second graph will tell us on the y plasma glucagon levels, and on the x-axis the time. The time is the same, no? 0, negative 15, 0, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. The same thing on the right graph. Yes? Pareho ang time, no? All right. So let's correlate glucose secretion. When there is hyperglycemia, ito yan, class. I'm pointing at it. Can you see? My cursor, ayan. What happens to glucagon secretion? Mababa. Ito. Mababa. Can you see light blue square here? Mababa. Can you see that, class?
Yes po, Doc.
When there is euglycemia, ayun, dito naman circular, so parang level lang yung glucagon, no? And hypoglycemia, ito yon. Can you see the secretion of glucagon? Ayun. Yes? All right. Okay. So let us see now receptor. Yan. Glucagon receptor. Yan. These are mediated through binding to and activation of the glucagon receptor. Okay? And this glucagon receptor class is a member of your 7 transmembrane alpha helices receptor, or what we call your serpentine receptor, or what you call G protein coupled receptor. Ayan. G protein coupled receptor. Predominantly expressed in the liver, so varying amount of kidneys, the heart, adipose, your gastrointestinal, as well as the pancreas. No? So this illustration shows us the glucagon signaling. Ayan. Can you see on the upper right, somewhere on the upper, 7 transmembrane alpha helices receptor. And it's a G protein coupled receptor there. The binding of your glucagon, forming a glucagon receptor complex, it will activate AC. What is AC? Adenyl cyclase, converting ATP to the second messenger cyclic AMP. And cyclic AMP, your inactive protein, is to the active protein kinase A. And what will happen? Protein kinase will result into phosphorylation of proteins. That's why the name protein kinase, no? There. And then one of the more important this protein kinase active is that it will to the nucleus. It will act nucleus and keep your CREB. What is AMP resistance element binding? Through what? Well, again, phosphorylation of protein kinase, no?
Doc, excuse me.
Correct. Yes.
Sorry po. Medyo putol-putol na po kasi yung ano po, yung dating po ng audio niyo po sa amin.
Baka gawa ng internet, ano?
Opo.
Oo nga, pero... Ayan, ngayon, putol-putol pa rin.
Okay na po, Doc.
Yes, right. So, CREB2. So, it will be activated through phosphorylation, and CREB will be bind the response of target genes, ayun, resulting in co-activators and ultimately promote gene expression. When you say gene expression class, what are the processes that will be involved? What are the processes? When the cells will express genes, what are the processes? Transcription and translation, meaning synthesis of RNAs. One of the more important will be synthesis of messenger RNA. And then once they have matured, then they will be used for protein synthesis. No? There, ayan. Okay? So activation of GQ. What is G? Diba there are several kinds of G protein? GS, GI, GQ, no? GOLF, GGOOSE, GT. Ayan. Have you heard of them, class? Yes, sabi ni Ernestine. Yes daw. How about Charmaine? Have you heard of them? Yes. Good, very good. Ayan. And one of them is Q, and this can reactivate this. When activated, will activate phospholipase C. Lipase C will act on PIP2, generating your inositide I mentioned earlier, your 1,2-deacylglycerol, and your IP3. No? Your IP3, by the nature of the structure, will be translocated to the cytosol, and it will bind to a calcium channel expressed on the membrane of your endoplasmic reticulum. No? There, yan. Releasing calcium into the cell. There. So this all of this result of your downstream signaling cascades, including your CREB regulated co-activator, symbolized CRT2, which will enhance CREB-dependent gene expression, as what your protein kinase A's have done. In addition to CRTC2 pathway, glucagon may signal through various pathways as well. So after that, let's see now how this is degraded and subsequently eliminated. This is facilitated by receptor-mediated endocytosis and subsequent proteolysis with the help of your ubiquitous enzyme dipeptidyl peptidase 4. Ayun. Consistent with the relative receptor expression, kidney seem to represent the two main organs removing glucagon circulation, no? The liver and the kidney. The circulating half-life of this hormone, glucagon, is around or between 4 to 7 minutes there in humans, no? In humans. Yeah. Okay? So this slide shows you your glucagon action. Yan. It increases the glucose production through gluconeogenesis, breakdown of fatty acids, which is, and inhibits lipogenesis, of course, promotes amino acids from proteins, no? Reduces food intake, increases energy expenditure, heart and contractility. So, yan. Okay, so it increases glucose production through gluconeogenesis. So glycolysis will be slowed down and subsequently inhibited. Through what enzyme? Can you remember, class? What is the most important enzyme of gluconeogenesis? The counterpart of the enzyme that catalyzes the committed step of your glycolysis. What is that? What is that enzyme of gluconeogenesis? What is the enzyme most important in catalyzing the committed step? Sa glycolysis, anong enzyme yan? PFK1. What is PFK1? Ano kaya ibig sabihin ng PFK1, class? Anybody?
Phosphofructokinase po ba?
That's very good. Rogibel, no? Phosphofructokinase 1. It catalyzes the committed step of glycolysis. Ano ang counterpart enzyme niya sa gluconeogenesis?
Dok, ito ba yung fructose bisphosphate, 1,6 bisphosphate?
Very good. Fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase. Yes. Very good. Very good. Rogibel, no? And what is the most important allosteric effector of both of these enzymes? I said effector, huh? I did not specify stimulator or inhibitor, huh? What is the most important allosteric effector of both of these enzymes? That is synthesized through an isoenzyme of your PFK1. What is that isoenzyme of PFK1? Madaling tandaan, class, by that number 1. PFK2, phosphofructokinase 2, that synthesizes the most important allosteric effector of both PFK1 and fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase. And what is that? Your fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, no? There, fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. For your PFK1, it's stimulatory. For fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase of gluconeogenesis, it is inhibitory. So this is signaling to your G protein coupled receptor, specifically GS. What is small letter S, subscript S? That is G protein stimulatory. No? Yan. So when it's activated, it will stimulate AC. Ayun. The active G protein S will activate AC form click AMP, activating protein kinase A. Ayan. There. Okay. So in this case, protein kinase A will phosphorylate glycogen synthase, inhibiting glycogen synthase, no? Because these are times of starvation. What about glycogen? It will be activated through can you see this class? This is glycogen phosphorylase. Can you see that? That through the serine 14 of phosphorylase, it becomes activated through the activation kinase. PPK class is glycosylase kinase, no? Which is the one that will actually directly attach a phosphate to your glycogen phosphorylase. Dito, ayun. I hope you remember. Do you remember that class? Yes? Tapos na kayo sa glycogen metab. Tama ba? Yes? Yes. Ayan. Siguro hingi ba kayo sa mga abbreviation. But if you look at the signaling pathway, you will be able to know. No? Kasi your glycogen down to glucose 1-phosphate by your enzyme glycogen phosphorylase. P1. No? Are you with me? Yes?
Yes po, Doc.
Ito na PPK is glycogen phosphorylase kinase. No? The one directly activated by protein kinase A, ayon, through phosphorylation also. And then once your glycogen kinase has a phosphate, it's active, and that will actually directly add phosphate to your inactive glycogen to become active. And the attachment of that phosphate class is serine 14. Kaya nga nakikita nyo serine, yon. Can you see the serine? Yes? Of glycogen phosphorase. Specifically, that is serine 14. No? Okay, so let's see the glucagon stimulating the acids and inhibiting lipogenesis in the liver. Yan. Okay. So, the hormone glucagon promotes formation of non-carbohydrate energy sources. So, as I've said, the glycerols in the adipose tissue will be mobilized into free fatty acids, so they will be degraded into free fatty acids and glycerol, the backbone. And subsequently, they will be transported through circulation to the liver, no? And inside the liver cells, naturally, your free fatty acids will be subjected to beta oxidation to generate the much needed energy for gluconeogenesis in the form of ATP, no? While glycerol can be utilized by the liver cells as one of your gluconeogenic substrates upon which glucose can be synthesized, no? Remember, your glycerol can be phosphorylated only in the liver because your glycerol kinase is only present in the liver. You don't have that kinase in the adipose tissue, no? So glycerol 3-phosphate will subsequently be converted to your dihydroxyacetone phosphate, no? There, ayan. And you know, phosphate is one of the triose phosphates, together with your glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, to be condensed to form fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, so that liver cells can synthesize eventually glucose, no? There. So let us see how your deposited triacylglycerol in the adipose tissue is mobilized. In the presence of the hormone glucagon, again, it will bind to glucagon receptor expressed on the membrane of your adipocytes, ayan, nandyan, okay, forming a glucagon complex. It will activate a stimulatory G protein, and the active G protein will activate a cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP in turn will activate kinase A, and the active protein kinase A will phosphorylate your peglipin, releasing a protein known as your CGI58. What is CGI? Comparative in identification 58 protein, no? There, otherwise known as your alpha beta hydrolase domain containing 5, no? There. Now, this CGI58 will bind to your ATGL. What is ATGL? adipose tissue triacylglycerol lipase. It will be activated and it will be the one to act on your deposited triacylglycerol, as you can see here. Release a fatty acid attached at carbon 3 of your glycerol backbone, 1,2-diacylglycerol. Activated protein kinase. Another protein that will be phosphorylated is your hormone sensitive. It will become active, and that active hormone sensitive lipase will be the one to act on 1,2-diacylglycerol, releasing the fatty acid attached at carbon 1. So there are now 2 free fatty acids released. And what is another product? 2-monoacylglycerol, no? 2-monoacylglycerol means that at carbon 2 of the backbone glycerol, there is still a fatty acid attached. So what will happen to glycerol? It will be subsequently degraded, acted upon by your monoacylglycerol lipase, ayun, to release the 3 fatty acid attached at carbon 2 of that 2-monoacyl. So therefore now you have 3 fatty acids and 1 molecule of your glycerol backbone, no? So what will happen to this? As I've said initially, they will be transported to the liver through the circulation. Your fatty acids will bind to your albumin protein in the circulation, no? Some authors would say that as much as 7 free fatty acids may bind to 1 molecule of your albumin, no? There. So both of them, glycerol and your free fatty acids, will be transported back to the liver. In the liver, your free fatty acids will be subjected to beta oxidation, while, as I've said, your glycerol will be utilized by the liver cells to synthesize glucose through gluconeogenic. One of your gluconeogenic substrates, no? Okay. Now, for the reason why is lipolysis needed is the schema, how that explains the regulation of fatty acid synthesis as with your beta oxidation. What is the most important enzyme class for fatty acid synthesis? It catalyzes the rate limiting step. It is in that slide, only it is in an abbreviated form. What is that enzyme that catalyzes the rate limiting step for fatty acid synthesis? What is ACE?
Acetyl-CoA.
That's right, Ernestine. Acetyl-CoA carboxylase, no ACC. Ayan. So there. In the presence of glucagon, what happens to this enzyme? Related. Ayan, class. Can you see? Is broken down to ADP. 1-phosphate is attached to ACC. And what happens to ACC? It depolymerizes. No? There. It is converted to its dimeric or monomeric form, becoming inactive. There. No? On the other hand, if you have insulin, what happens? The phosphate group attached through the predominance of glucagon will now be removed because insulin activates one protein known as your protein phosphatase 1. Ayan. That will remove the phosphate group. Can you see the inorganic? Converting now your dimeric or monomeric ACC to polymerize to become a polymer, making it active. As a matter of fact, author says that around 40 to 41 of your acetyl-CoA carboxylase polymerizes to become active, no? And therefore, acetyl-CoA will be converted to malonyl-CoA, and once malonyl-CoA is formed, that will be taken over by your fatty acid synthase enzyme complex to synthesize the most common fatty acids, which is synthesized by the liver cells, which is what? What fatty acid? It's also in that slide, class. Your palmitic acid, no? A 16-carbon saturated fatty acid. All right? Okay. So Google promotes breakdown of amino acids, and this slide shows that, no? Well, secreted from the pancreatic alpha cells. It acts on liver, G glucagon acid transport and catabolism, maintaining blood amino acid levels. When glucagon signal, okay, through genes in amino transport and catabolism regulated there. Impaired uptake and catabolism potentially result in hyperaminoacidemia. Through an endocrine feedback loop, acid stimulate secretion acutely and under sustained stimulation promote alpha secretion and hyperplasia. The resultant hyperaminoacidemia, particularly no, pancreas cells and glucagon secretion expiration. So, okay. Now, how the glucagon reduces food intake? Ayan. So this slide shows us in relation to food intake, you have there the brain, yeah, specifically the hypothalamus, no? So you have there the neuronal pathway that regulates the anorexigenic action of glucagon. So they have acute administration glucagon code reduction of intake and diminish hunger. The pre-glucagon signaling in mental rats evidence for a role of glucagon in the regulation of appetite. Now, it is somewhat counterintuitive that glucagon should reduce food intake, given that glucagon levels are typically elevated upon fasting and decrease upon feeding. No? The observed effect upon glucagon administration could partly be due to cross-reactivity with the protein GLP-1 receptor. Okay, there. The neuronal pathway that regulates the anorexigenic action of glucagon are shown as well. This takes place or ARC via your G protein coupled receptor as well, and includes protein a calcium calmodulin dependent protein kinase, no? And so activated protein kinase or your agouti related protein. Now, how does glucagon increases energy expenditure? Again, they found this at an experiment done, okay, showing that subcutaneous administration of glucagon agonists decrease body weight and fat mass in diet-induced obesity mice by stimulating energy expenditure and locomotor activity through the action of fibroblast growth factor 21. There. A follow-up study of this experiment determined that your farnesoid X receptor signaling in concert with your fibroblast growth factor 21 are the ones responsible for the stimulation of energy expenditure and also fatty acid oxidation there. So it's clear that glucagon impacts body weight through feed mechanisms, most probably by stimulating energy expenditure as well as breakdown of your or mobilization of your triglycerides, which subsequently stimulates fatty acid oxidation. Now, glucagon may regulate heart rate as well as contractility, as shown in this slide, no? There. So cyclic AMP produced from your adenoid place again in response to your G protein coupled receptor stimulation and activates its classical effector, your protein kinase A, no? There. Phosphodiesterase degrades cyclic AMP and thereby regulate the duration and intensity of AMP signaling. Okay, there. Your exchange protein directly activated by cyclic AMP or EPAC in a protein kinase A independent manner and represents an mechanism for governing signaling specifically within the cyclic AMP is shown. Binding of cyclic AMP to the high affinity cyclic nucleotide binding domain of your EPAC, so that is your exchange protein directly activated by cyclic AMP, induces marked conformational change in the protein. This leads to sure region for binding of your RAP GTPase, no? There. So this is a GTPase activating protein to catalyze the exchange of GDP for GTP. So there will be activation, okay, enhancing the intrinsic GTP hydrolysis activity by a FRAP leading to GTPase inactivation. So this results in crosstalk or crossroads, no? They meet at crossroads. That is actually tantamount to cross-talking between hormones, no? Of different physiological processes that may represent therapeutic targets, no? For the treatment of severe cardiovascular disorders, including arrhythmias as well as heart failure. Now, this slide shows us the organ-specific action of glucagon. So as you can see, after they have been secreted by the cells through hypoglycemia, your GIP, your glucose-independent insulinotropic polypeptide, that is GIP, as well as through the presence of amino acids, then in the brain, there will be reduction in the food intake. There can also be reduction of appetite, but there can be increase in satiety. In the pancreas, there can be increase in insulin secretion. In the liver, you can see there's increased glucose production, decreased glucose breakdown, no? Increased lipid breakdown through beta oxidation. Therefore, lipogenesis will be slowed down or inhibited. There can be increased ketone body formation as well as increased amino acid breakdown. What about in the brown adipose tissue? There's increase in the resting energy expenditure. And in the heart, there can be increase in the heart rate as well as contractility. So we have discussed this actually. Yan. Yan. All right. So in the liver, there can be glycogenolysis to provide for initial glucose, and later on through gluconeogenesis, no, again to increase plasma glucose, and later on there can be increased synthesis of ketone bodies through the breakdown of your fatty acids, no, there. And so as you can see, for the use of what organ? The brain. Ayan. Ayan, as I had emphasized, no, in the beginning, as well as other tissues, no. Ayan. Okay. So when the glucagon levels are increased naturally, the secretion of insulin will be decreased, no. Ayan. So let us now look into the pathophysiology. Ayan. In type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, in obesity, and your hepatic steatosis. So this graph illustrates the plasma glucagon's concentrations in the patients with diabetes type 2, no? And compared with that of the normal person. Ayan, in healthy subjects. Can you see the two graphs? The one above is for your type 2 diabetic persons, while the one below for the normal individual, no? Ayan. So in type 2 diabetes, there is elevated fasting plasma glucagon level. Ayan. Okay. There. And impaired suppression of plasma glucagon levels in response to oral glucose. Okay. So this is the what do you call this? this signifies the increase in the oral glucose. So there's no change, no? Ayan. Both of them are elevated, yan. Impaired suppression of glucagon secretion. Okay? Let's compare that with type 1 diabetes. So again, the upper graph is for your persons or patients with type 1. The one below is for your healthy individual. So this graph shows us that at type 1 diabetics, there is elevated concentration of glucagon. Can you see this? No? In response to a meal or oral glucose intake. Ayun. Okay, so that's the difference. No? Now, what about in obesity and hepatic steatosis? Okay, so this slide shows us the effects of increased lipolysis on liver dysfunction. So there can be excess lipolysis, resulting in high free fatty acids that goes into the liver. Okay, where these free fatty acids causes steatosis, and this one now, if you are now in this situation, there will now be lipotoxic effects. Ayan. Triacylglycerol synthesized in the liver, we now are secreted into the plasma circulation with the help of your what lipoprotein? Your VLDL, no? And this will cause now your dyslipidemia. Visceral fat has a preferential role in hepatic fat accumulation since released free fatty acids reach the liver via the portal vein. There is also increased hepatic de novo synthesis of fatty acid there. So therefore, there can be now fatty liver, okay? Deposition of excess fatty acids, excess triacylglycerol, resulting into fatty liver. Therefore, it can result into the inflammation, and it can contribute to oxidative stress to the liver, no? And later on, naturally, what will happen to the liver? The liver will be damaged, and it can result to hepatic dysfunction. Ayan. Any question about glucagon at this point in time, class? Meron? Can we go to insulin? Yes. All right. So insulin. Ayan. Again, these are our map. So again, explain the structure, synthesis, and secretion like glucagon, and then explain insulin's action, its role in glucose metabolism. You'll be able to explain the effects of glucose on glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and explain the pathophysiology of diabetes. So this is just part of the history. Before about 1922, anyone who developed diabetes would die within a year or two. No, they would literally starve to death, dropping into a coma at the end. No, yun ang nangyayari noon. But later on, through the experiment that was done by Banting, Best, and MacLeod, discovering that an extract made from a dog's pancreas could keep alive dogs that have been made diabetic. Yan. Banting and Best injected a 14-year-old boy with crude insulin, and that boy lived another 13 years more, no, with daily injections. Insulin therapy was born then, no? Ayan. And they were given the Nobel Prize for Medicine. Okay? Then in 1955, Fred Sanger determined insulin sequence of amino acid. And again, for that, he was given a Nobel Prize, no? For the first protein ever sequenced. Maraming first for insulin, no? The first protein whose amino acids was sequenced is the first protein that was synthesized out of your recombinant DNA technology. No? But still, there is a puzzle to solve. Two peptide chains, no? There, yun. They don't know yet the exact structure then. So this is the structure of your mature insulin. There are two chains, the A chain and the B chain. Okay. The A chain is made up of 21 amino acids. You can see it from here. While the B chain is made up of how many? 30 amino acids. No, there. And you can see the disulfide bonds. Now, within the A chain, there is an intra-chain disulfide bond connecting cysteine 6 with cysteine 11. And between the two chains, A chain and B chain, there are two disulfide bonds, interchain disulfide bonds. One, the first one connecting cysteine 7 with cysteine 7 of the A chain with cysteine 7 of the B chain. And the second disulfide bond is between cysteine 20 of A chain with that of cysteine 19 of the B chain. No? There. Now, it was in 1969 that Dorothy Hodgkins used the X-ray crystallography to determine the three-dimensional structure of insulin. And again, for that, he was given a Nobel Prize. No? There. This is the result of the X-ray crystallography. And then the secondary structure of the A chain consists, again, the two antiparallel helices formed between the residues A2 to A8 and A13 to A19. No? There. The overall tertiary structure of insulin monomer, okay, is highly organized and stabilized by specific amino acid side chain interactions, no? Naturally. Together, of course, with your disulfide bonds. No? Once the hexamers are secreted from the beta cells, they diffuse into the blood down their concentration gradient. No? There. A combination of electrostatic repulsion and decreased concentration of insulin favors the dissociation of insulin to its monomeric form, the active form. No? There. So the monomeric form is the active form, while the hexameric form, with the help of the zinc ion, the hexameric form is your storage form. No? Ayan, class. Shown is a hexameric form of your insulin molecule, and in the middle you can see your zinc, no? Stabilized by zinc ions. No? There. So I have explained this, no? The primary, the secondary, okay, structures, and the tertiary structures of your insulin. So again, the primary, the A chain is 21 amino acids, while the B chain is 30 amino acids. There are disulfide bridges. No? In the A chain, there is only one. Between the A chain and the B chain, there are two. Yan. Okay. Again, this will be the details of your, but we will not go into this. Just to mention that our insulin molecule in the secondary structure may exist in the T state and the R state. No? There, ayan. Ano yung sabihin ng T state, class?
10 state.
The 10 state, no? The R state now is the relaxed state, no? There, ayan. Okay. The overall tertiary structure, ayan. Okay. So these are the amino acid residues that will bring about stabilization of the tertiary structure. Again, we will not go into the details of this. So insulin stored in the beta cells, no? They are packed into densely clustered granules consisting of insoluble crystalline hexameric form of insulin, no? There. So the granules are roughly, each of the granule is roughly 40 nanometer, millimole, yan, 40 millimolar. So the hexameric form consists of 6 molecules of insulin peptide arranged as 3 dimers. Ayan, okay. There. The zinc, 2 zinc atoms, no? With the imidazole group, no? Of 3 histidine residues, all right? Coordinates to form the hexameric form, okay? And there are 3 water molecules associated. Two zinc ions help in the formation of the hexamers. No? So 6 monomers will converge there. When there are 4 zinc ions there, so this will form in the presence of high chloride concentration. 3 of the monomeric exist in the R conformation and 3 in the T form. There. Now, when you have a phenol-containing crystal or phenol-containing solution, then the R form predominates. So, yan. So, this is the summary of insulin structure interactions. No? So, in the first column, interaction between dimers in the hexamer is weaker, but there is greater van der Waals separation among the dimers in the hexamer, while interaction among the monomers in the dimer is greater, and therefore lesser van der Waals separation among the monomers in the dimer. So, now for binding, so there are specific amino acids that are involved, no? Ayan. Again, we don't go into the details of this, just to show you. So you have there the amino terminus of the A chain, as well as the carboxy terminus of the A chain, okay? As well as the carboxy terminus of the B chain. So that's for binding. For receptor binding, free positively charged amino terminus end of the A chain. Ayan. For positioning, salt bridge formed between glycine 1 and the carboxy terminus of the B chain. For insulin receptor affinity, the carboxy terminus of the A chain involving these amino acids, tyrosine, cysteine, and asparagine. The B chain region, in the B chain, the region for receptor binding activity, you have there the amino acids, there. While histidine B10 is key for maximal insulin activity and processing of proinsulin to insulin. So remember histidine B10, there. Now for synthesis. So this is regulated at both the transcriptional as well as translational levels. So meaning at transcription and at protein synthesis. The cis-acting sequences within the 5' flanking region and trans-activators, including the paired box gene 6, PAC6. Can you see PAC6? This is the gene class. This is the nucleus, Can you see paired box gene 6 or PAC6 there? Also, your pancreatic and duodenal homeodomain 1, PDX1, can you see? You can see it there. Your MAF, MAF-A and B, you can see there as well. And your B2 neurogenic differentiation 1, neuro D1, you can see also there. Regulate insulin transcription, while the stability of pre-proinsulin messenger RNA and its untranslated regions control protein translation. Ayan. What is pre-proinsulin? That is actually the primary structure class that was synthesized from the messenger RNA. So meaning the pre-pro are sequence of amino acids attached at the N-terminus of your mature insulin. And what do? Your pre-segment dictates its movement to your endoplasmic reticulum, where it will be removed, forming proinsulin. Then what will happen? The pro-segment, the pro-sequence, will dictate its movement now in turn to your Golgi apparatus, where it will be cleaved to form your insulin. So there will be processing inside your Golgi apparatus. There. So there, this slide shows us the formation of the mature insulin. Yan. So the secreted insulin consists of 51 amino acids with a molecular weight of 5.8 kilodaltons. The insulin gene encodes a 110 amino acid precursor known as pre-pro-insulin, as I was saying, no? So the pre-pro-insulin contains a hydrophobic N-terminal signal peptide. Ayun. So it will be the one that will so that's signal peptide, the segment, will interact with the cytosolic ribonucleoprotein signal recognition particle, or SRP. SRP facilitates pre-proinsulin translocation across the RAF and the plasmic reticulum membrane into the lumen. No? So through your signal peptidase, the pre-segment will be removed, resulting in the formation of your proinsulin. Ayan. Then it undergoes folding and formation of 3-disulfide bonds. There, no? This will require the help of your chaperone proteins, no? Bakit? Chaperone proteins, or what we call as heat shock protein. Go ahead. So, with the help of your pro segment, the proinsulin is now transported to your Golgi apparatus, no? Okay. And then your pro segment is cleaved together with your C-peptide. You see the A chain and the B chain, when they are in the proinsulin status, no, are connected still by a intervening sequence known as your C-peptide, connecting peptide. C means connecting, no, there. So when they reach the Golgi apparatus, then Golgi apparatus or Golgi complex, then the pre-segment will be cleaved, okay, signal peptidase. And then the C-peptide as well will be removed, no? Forming the mature insulin. Together, of course, with several amino acids. And these are lysine and arginine residues, no? There. Now, although insulin biosynthesis is controlled by multiple factors, glucose metabolism is the most important physiological event, no, that stimulates insulin gene transcription and translation. Glucose plays a central role in regulation of insulin biosynthesis. There, no? So, which is controlled at least partially by alterations in pro-insulin messenger RNA expression. I think you're finished with transcription and translation class. Yes? Hindi pa? I see. Okay. Because transcription and translation, then our proteins are synthesized. No? Now, in addition, glucose is an important factor for maintaining insulin messenger RNA stability there. So they have found out that reduced glucose, the concentration and increase under high glucose concentration. So they will affect the stability. Okay. So they have experiments when they have reduced glucose. They also did experiments with high glucose, and they found out that levels of glucose affect stability of your insulin. Interestingly, elevation of intracellular cyclic AMP levels can prevent reduction. Yun. Ayan, class. Insulin expression, meaning from the genes to proteins, so involving transcription and translation. No? There. So, can you see number 1, insulin gene containing 3 exons separated by 2 introns. Number 2, pre-proinsulin produced via transcription and translation of the insulin gene. And then your number 3, can you see here? Number 3, proinsulin produced from pre-proinsulin after the signal peptide is cleaved off by signal peptidase 4, as I mentioned earlier. Signal peptidase, no? And then 4th, ayan, mature insulin produced as the C-peptide is cleaved from proinsulin within the secretory vesicle. So there, okay. So after transcription within the nucleus, so that is step 1. Can you see step 1 here? Translation occurs at the cytosolic phase of your endoplasmic reticulum there, producing pre-proinsulin. No? Within the endoplasmic reticulum, the signal peptide is cleaved, disulfide bonds form, and the peptide is folded. Proinsulin moves into your Golgi, where it is sorted and packed into secretory vesicles. Step 3, no? Yan. Within these vesicles, the C-peptide is cleaved off by prohormone convertases 1 and 3, as well as your prohormone convertase 2. And then, by means of your carboxypeptidase E, removing amino acids, the carboxy, and there is formation now of your mature insulin. Step 4, no? Yan. Then, insulin is secreted in response to secretory signals that result in membrane depolarization and calcium influx into the cell. There. Insulin binds to insulin receptor. What do you call the insulin receptor? Receptor tyrosine kinase, no? Receptor tyrosine, RTK, no? And the resultant receptor activation initiates intracellular signaling cascade. So here the process for insulin secretion. Okay. The large conductance calcium activated potassium channels, or BK channels, no? BK channels are large conductance calcium activated potassium channels, no? There. Ito yun. What is the BK channel? KCA. Ito. BK channel. Are specialized ion channels activated by both membrane depolarization and increased intracellular calcium levels. So what happens here? So you have their postprandial high glucose levels. So this after eating naturally, and by means of GLUT2, glucose will enter the cell. No? Yes. Then naturally it will be metabolized through glycolysis. There will be production of a lot of ATP. ATP will bind to your potassium channels. What will happen? This potassium channels closes. There will be membrane depolarization. There will be opening up of your VGCC there, voltage gated calcium channels, allowing calcium to enter there. And what will happen? Calcium stimulates snare-dependent exocytosis of these insulin granules. Ayan. So the insulin now are released. Okay. All right, there. Ayan. And as well as there is through the membrane depolarization, your BK channels, these are your BK channels, there, are activated, no? There. And there will be increased intracellular calcium. Okay. Now let's see nutrient regulated insulin secretion. So basically this is through the action or levels of glucose, no? There. Ayan. So the endpoint of glycolysis is the metabolic substrate pyruvate that is then oxidized through your Krebs. Okay? And eventually there will be a lot of ATP that will be formed, no? So what will happen? So there, no? So there will be oxidation of pyruvate through your Krebs. So initially, it will enter the matrix. It will be oxidatively decarboxylated to form acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA will now spark the Krebs cycle. And we know that there will be a lot of ATP that will be formed through the reduced electron carriers. Basically what? NADH plus H and your FADH2. No? As a matter of fact, per complete cycle of Krebs, how many ATPs are formed? Anybody? Sa inyo, how many ATPs? 10? 10 ba? Per complete cycle of Krebs lang. Or 12? Hindi na matandaan. But anyway, depending on the ratio that you use, no? Maybe 10 or 12 there. So after forming a lot of your ATP, the ATP will bind to your ATP sensitive potassium channels there, which increases the intracellular ATP-ADP ratio, subsequently leading to closure of these potassium ATP channels. So there will be the polarization of the plasma membrane. There will be opening up of your VGCC, voltage gated or voltage dependent calcium channel. Influx of calcium and eventual activation of exocytosis of insulin-containing granules. No, there. Ayan. Anapylarosis as well serves to replenish the carbon pool of your TCA cycle. What is the most important anapylarotic enzyme? Do you remember, class?
Pyruvate carboxylase po.
Very good, James. It's your pyruvate carboxylase, which is the first unique enzyme of, is also the first unique enzyme of gluconeogenesis, no? There, ayan. It's in the process again, plus it's H, right? So let's
Doc, excuse me po. Medyo wala na po kami naririnig, Doc.
wala talaga. Internet. Ang internet po. Abo, no? Kaya, tignan niyo po. Hello?
Baka lobat na po, Doc, yung ano niyo po, headset niyo po.
Ayan. Pakinig na niyo ako? Ah, yes. Pakinig. Yes.
Okay na po, Doc.
Okay. Yes. All right. Siguro yung iPad ko, no? So again, beta cells do not appear to contain membrane-bound glucose receptors, but are equipped with several sensing devices that measures circulating glucose. One of them is your GLUT2, no? Glucose transporter 2. Constitutively expressed in beta cells. This is the first encounter glucose sensor, no? There. It equilibrates in beta cells via this transporter. And this mediates what kind of diffusion? Facilitated diffusion. It is also expressed in the liver and to lesser extent in the renal, the kidney, and your intestines. No? Unlike GLUT4, which is primarily expressed in the muscles and fat cells, mobilization of GLUT2 to the plasma membrane is insulin independent. No? While GLUT4 is insulin dependent. No? There, no? So this GLUT2 is insulin independent, and the transporter protein shows a low substrate affinity, ensuring high glucose influx. There. Okay. Now, glucokinase is expressed in only 4 types of mammalian cells, where liver cells, beta cells, enterocytes, your intestinal cells, and glucose-sensitive neurons. No? 2 important properties enable glucokinase to function as a glucose sensor in beta cells, distinguishing it from other hexokinases. The first property is its relatively lower affinity for glucose than other hexokinases. Ayan. Its Km is only 6 millimolar per liter, falling in the middle of the normal blood glucose range of about 4 to 10 millimoles per liter. So 4 to 10 is the normal glucose range, no? And this hexokinase has 6 millimoles per liter, while other hexokinases function at maximal velocity at glucose concentrations, other glucose. The second property is that it is not inhibited by its product. There. Diba? What do you call this hexokinase in the liver class? It's glucokinase, hexokinase D, no? There, ayan. So this one is not inhibited by the product, often a regulatory feature in metabolism. This feature enables its continued activity in spite of high glycolysis load. Glucokinase is thus the rate-limiting step in beta cell glucose metabolism, and it is considered to be an important glucose sensor. Yun. Sa liver, we have glucokinase. While in the brain, we have hexokinase. Magandang design ba yan? Sa brain natin, either hexokinase 1, but majority is hexokinase 2. Hexokinase 3. Both of these hexokinase 1 and hexokinase 3 has low Km. Lower than 6 millimoles per liter. Much lower. Maganda ba yun? Low, high affinity. Low Km. That is good class because during times of starvation, even though you have a very low blood glucose level, the brain can still make up use of those remaining glucose in circulation. The liver will not compete with it because it needs high concentration. No, it has a high Km. There, all right. And what the liver will do instead will be to provide glucose. It will synthesize glucose to release into the circulation. A third glucose signal results from the formation of glycerol 3-phosphate. After glucose is phosphorylated into glucose 6 by glucokinase, glucose 6-phosphate can enter glycolysis generating pyruvate there. And then pyruvate in the process of glycolysis, one of the intermediates is your DHAP, right? Okay. And this now can be converted to your glycerol 3-phosphate there by your glycerol 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. And this glycerol 3-phosphate is important for generating lipid metabolic coupling factors such as long-chain acyl-CoA and your 1,2-deacylglycerol, no? There. That can augment insulin secretion there. So long-chain acyl-CoA and diacylglycerol augment insulin secretion. Ayan. So on the left, you can see your glycerol and also your free fatty acids. Can you see them? Ayan. Okay. So you have here the different players, no? Your alpha beta hydrolase domain containing 6. Can you see that? Your ABHD6 1 MOC13-1 network regulates insulin secretion in response to various classes of insulin secretagogues, no? There. Glucose and fatty acids enter the glycerolipid fatty acyl acid cycle in its lipogenesis arm via esterification of glucose-derived glycerol 3-phosphate with your fatty acyl-CoA. No? There. Remember your glycerol serving as the backbone? Have you finished lipid metabolism, class? Yes. What are the two pathways for synthesizing triacylglycerol? One to the acylglycerol pathway as well as your monoacylglycerol pathway. No? There. Ayan, ito yun. So after breakdown of your triacylglycerol, long-chain saturated 1 monoacylglycerol, acting as metabolic coupling factor causing insulin secretion through binding and activation of the exocytosis coordinator MUG13-1, a synaptic vesicle priming protein. There. So MUG13-1, when bound by 1,2-acylglycerol, it activates protein kinase C there, and that will help promote insulin secretion. Now, glutamine, no, leucine, and 2-keto-isocaproate, they produce additional coupling factors, no, that help that activate insulin secretion together with elevation in cytosolic calcium, okay, and your 1 monoacylglycerol signal. What about non-fuel neurohormonal stimuli? Can be glucagon-like peptide 1, acetylcholine. There, they activate the stimulatory G protein and your GQ protein, resulting into the formation of your second messenger cyclic AMP as well as your inositide. Your inositides are your IP3 and your 1,2-deacylglycerol. No? There. So this would be for glycerol 3-phosphate. Now, fatty acids, ayan, also influence beta cell secretion of insulin. So fatty acids can also stimulate or enhance glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. No? There. So these free fatty acids will bind to their receptor, which is your FFAR1. Ayun. So they can influence beta cell function through that. Okay. So they can activate your phospholipase C again, and then acting on PIP2, generating IP3 and 1,2-deacylglycerol. Ayan. IP3, it will bind to a calcium channel expressed on the endoplasmic reticulum, releasing calcium into the cytosol there. And so once calcium there in the cytosol, we know that it can enhance exocytosis, no? There. Amino acids, okay? So they found out that glucose and leucine, together with that amino acid leucine, they serve as potent positive allosteric effector of the glutamate dehydrogenase ayan, activity. They also found out interaction with the Krebs cycle activity resulting in the synthesis of a lot of ATP there. Yan. Can you see leucine here? And glucose, ayun. Through Krebs, ayan. So they form a lot of ATP, ayun. So again, it affects your potassium channel. There will be depolarization, again, ayan. So what will happen? Calcium channels will be opened up. Your voltage-gated calcium channels allowing calcium to enter, ayun. So again, what will happen? This calcium will, together with your snare proteins, no, helps in the movement and subsequent binding of your vesicles containing insulin to the membrane. And there will be exocytosis. Okay? There. So individual amino acids at physiological concentrations are poor insulin secretagogues. However, combinations and at physiological concentration or higher concentrations, these factors will augment your GSIS, glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. No? Will be glutamine alone does not stimulate insulin secretion, but a combination of glutamate with leucine, both of these together can enhance GSIS. No, there. Glutamine, after converted to glutamate by glutaminase, no, can enter your Krebs via the alpha ketone, and therefore there will be formation of a lot of ATP there. And again, you know the story, no? When there's a lot of ATP inside the cell, okay? So ayan, cellular signaling transduction pathways and regulation of insulin secretion. Just to show you your snare, no? Soluble N-ethylmalamide sensitive factor attachment protein receptor. Ayan. This plays an essential role in insulin granule membrane fusion. I mentioned this, right? Protein. There. Okay. Now, we will not go into this, no? Details ng snare action. Elevation of intracellular calcium concentration, ayan, triggers the priming and fusion of insulin granules. Rate of insulin exocytosis at intracellular calcium concentration increased to 17 millimoles per liter. So they're at 500 granules per second. There. Rate of insulin exocytosis at intracellular calcium concentration when it is 0.17 millimoles, only 3 to 4 granules per second. No? There. High calcium sensitive pool. Yan. What else? So the levels of intracellular calcium or concentration of calcium inside the cells determined by opening and closure of your VGCC, no? Yan. Voltage-gated calcium channels. And these are the types. You have the L type, high voltage activated calcium channel, yan, which are sensitive to your dihydropyridines. Another one would be your non-L type, okay? And the third would be your voltage activated T-type calcium channels, no? Now, for each receptor, ayan, the insulin receptor is this one, a dimeric form, no? It's one of your receptor tyrosine kinases. But this insulin receptor class is different from the other receptor tyrosine kinases in that this particular receptor comes as a dimer already. Can you see the disulfide bonds that connects your uh, extracellular domains, no, there, to your transmembrane as well as cytosolic domains of your insulin receptor. Now, this one also serves as the receptor for your insulin growth factor 1, no, there. Can you see the other tyrosine kinases? They come as monomers, no? Yan. Now, the hormones that regulate insulin secretion, you have their estrogen, melatonin, GLP-1, leptin, and growth hormones, no? There. Okay. So that's it, class. Any question? It's called one. Ah, natin.
Doc, choppy po kayo.
At, oh,
Napuputol po talaga, Doc.
then eto. Can you hear?
Yes, Doc. Good afternoon po.
Can you see the chat box?
Yes po, Doc. Sa LO na lang po, Doc, kay Sharla po, Arias.
Ayun. Kay Miss Ariad. Ariad. Ayan.
Arias po, Doc.
Ariad. Ano first name?
Sharla po, Doc.
Charlotte
Sharla po.
Ariad.
Arias po, Doc.
Charlemagne.
Yes
Okay.
po, Doc.
Yes. All right. Questions? No questions? Hanggang 3 o'clock na tayo, no? Yes?
Yes po, Doc. May class po kami after.
Okay. Sige, bye-bye.
Bye-bye
you,
po,
Doc.
Doc. Thank you po, Doc.
doctors.
Ito.
Welcome, welcome.
Dito din po yung class namin, Doc. Kay Doc Sadol po.
Nandyan pa si Doc. Okay, wala na. Sige, class. Mag-break muna kayo. Be back before 3:20. No. Saglit lang saglit lang yung lecture ko. Sige na. Madali lang to. Break muna.